Venri Chapter 20. Shepard. When she woke, it was because Dr. Shakwas needed the bed, needed to access his knee, and she had to leave. Garrus woke her quietly with his arm tightening around her, where it had no doubt been all day. Night. What time was it? Venri. Karen needs to get some work done. Make me pretty again. You should wash the blood out of your hair. I'm sorry I'm gonna miss it. She held on tight for a moment. Quiet sleep, giving way to the various clamors of, what the fuck did I do? I'm not sorry. I know. I'm not sorry, too. Are you still angry? Yes. Me too. I'm not sorry I love you. I'm not sorry, too. I really don't want to go. You know where I'll be. She wanted to hold his hand, but her fingers were broken, so she covered his hand with hers, then kissed him on the side of the neck and dragged herself from him reluctantly. Back to showering off blood and other familiar things. She cleaned up, finding the new emotional ground she was on to the best of her ability. She would do this one step at a time. They were headed back to the Citadel for a variety of planned meetings, supply checks, refuels, and interviews. She had been in steady meetings and conferences, from the irate Dalatras to the exultant Rex. She wasn't giving up on Solarian support. She was going to try to outflank the Dalatras diplomatically, if possible. She was doing her best to understand Solarian treaty law and compelled service circumstances. Morden's people should be in this fight, and no wasn't an acceptable answer. Still, nobody had woken her up or demanded that she be somewhere. No doubt, Karen's prescription and Garrus's implied growling. Everything was still going to hell at the same rate. Even if it had accelerated, the people closest to her had given her time away from it. Time she needed. Her mind seemed reasonably sane right now. She should keep it up, not squander it. She checked back in with her crew. Vega saying, "Nice one, Lola. You should see the other guy." "I did. Smug bastard has a bite mark on his throat." Well, consolation prize, you know. Anytime you want to console me, you just let me know." Was there a pool on when I was gonna beat on him? No. Unfortunately, we expected you guys to work it out like grown-ups. Stupid us, huh? Oh, it was grown up. If you say so. Garrus is out of the rotation for continuing Normandy bloodbath. You and Javik okay on handling sparring workshops? I do want back in at some point. I appreciate you guys taking this over. We got it covered. We know Scars +1 is busy with Palaven, and you're busy with political dumbasses. Javik's good. He likes beating people up, and they get a lesson in Prothean tactics, so everyone's happy. You learning anything? Just that Garrus would have a tougher time today than that first bullshit round. That's what I like to hear. Thanks, Vega. I've got some ideas about workshops, working on different types of armor sets, how to break the joints and weak points. I haven't thought it all out yet, but I will. We're headed back to the Citadel, and hopefully we can swing some shore leave. Great. I got some money to burn. All right. I know where to find you then. Okay. I'm off to get publicly humiliated by everyone on the ship. Yeah, well, I would assume it's gonna be done with humor. Nobody wants you getting another broken finger. Nobody wants a nose like his. You guys are okay, right? I mean, I don't want to laugh something off if you're not okay. You were wrapped around that guy like a vine. If you wonder why people aren't mad at you or him, it's because enough people saw you sleeping. And his face. So there's no possible way that people are going to buy that this was just a separate mission, huh? We're military. That doesn't mean we're stupid. I'm sure someone could pretend to not know. Diana's gonna herniate something not broadcasting it. If she does, though, if anybody else does, I will fucking kill them with extreme prejudice. We can give you shit. Nobody else can. You weren't on a mission. No hope of that. Try harder. Or don't beat the shit out of your husband. Nobody's mad because you broke your hands on him. He, clearly, isn't mad at you. Oh, we're still mad, but that's good to know. Thank you. We are okay. As okay as you can be in this mess, anyway. It won't affect the mission. Mad about what? Tell me to fuck off if that's too much. I had a nightmare. A bad one. I started using biotics. I'm not sure I can do much about my nightmares. He thinks I should. Based on the results, he may be right. Morden, Palavin, it's all bad. Grief and exhaustion got to me. Though if he'd stayed down... Yeah, that's not gonna happen. Thanks for telling me. Makes sense. Can't control what happens when your brain isn't working. I admit there's some curiosity, and I appreciate the confidence. Glad I don't have to wake you up. Well, maybe. He seems to think it was worth it. I know it wouldn't affect the mission for either of you. He'd have a tough time scrambling just this minute, but I still wouldn't bet against him. Just don't be surprised if people are worried about you. People like me. Okay? You need anything, you ask. Okay. That seems to be the general theme. He deserved better. You deserve better. I do need something. You guys are helping me get it. I could try to hide it, but I do need you guys to understand, if you can, and not feel I'm fucking it all up. Tell me if I am. I'll do something about the dreams. I should have before now. I just didn't. Oh, I'm fine. I am entertained. You start fucking up on the field, and not just on his face, I will be the first one to let you know. So you gotta take me with you more often. Next one, I promise. You know, James, you haven't asked me for a damn thing, unlike pretty much everyone else I've ever served with, including my husband, who has a habit of asking me to kill people for him. What I need, you're already giving me. Go illuminate the rest of the crew. Record it. Let me watch. Best day ever. She grinned and worked her way over to Cortez, who said nothing about her injuries, other than a slight warmth and concern in his voice. They went over resupply lists and expectations of the Citadel. When she was wrapping it up, he said, "Well, Commander, someone's been using up a lot of metagel and splints." Her lips twitched. "I'll dock their pay for draining supplies." "That's good. Let's just double the next order." "Got plans?" "What the hell? It looks like fun." The worst was going to be Joker, so she headed there next. "Hey, Commander! I don't need to worry, right? You're not just beating up the highest-ranking people and working your way down? I need time to flee." "Don't worry. You're low enough on the list that you'd hear me coming after I work through everyone else." Ouch. That kind of hurt my feelings. Look, if I wanted to beat you up, I'd just tip your chair over, okay? It'll be over. Real fast. All right. Everything's okay headed to the Citadel. We changing course? No, I just wanted to get out in front of the laughter. You are way too late for that. Hey, Commander, what do you call a Taurian that pissed off his wife? What? A blue plate special. How could that not be funny? You should do it every day. Edie spoke up. Why did you do it at all? Do what? Why is Advisor Vicarian in the medbay with a broken... I could quantify his injuries. I have access to his medical records, but I believe you are aware of the extent. Why did you hit him? Joker added. Edie, that might be a little too personal. I'll make fun of them, but if you're gonna ask, I'll listen. Edie, what I feel for Garrus is love. Love can be very protective and comforting. It can also be very passionate and painful. It covers a whole person, including all the things that hurt. I was afraid, and I struck out at him, and I hurt him a lot. I'm not proud of it. But I can't promise I won't do it again. I will always love him. He will always be the closest to me when I'm at my worst, and I will always have reasons to be afraid. Will this change your relationship with him? That we love each other, no, that won't change. What will change is that I need to manage my fears better. My fears form into nightmares, and I was using biotics in my sleep. I would like to avoid doing harm. He avoided doing harm to me. Joker said, Well, you can always kill someone else. That would be ideal. Unfortunately, we can't kill enough people to eliminate the fear. The more people I kill, the more people who die under my command, like Morden, the worse it gets. I heard that. Edie, do you dream? I do not. I am aware of the phenomena, but I do not experience it myself. If Jeff and I were to be involved, would I... Commander Shepard, you are the only example of romantic love I have at my disposal. I have seen you both under so many circumstances. I never would have thought that you would hurt him. Would I hurt Jeff? Is it too late to take back the part where I was snooping gleefully into someone else's business? Nope, you're in. Edie, consider, in that time that you've seen us together, while we are on duty, how much of our time is spent on combat, or preparing for combat in percentages? 73% of your time combined while awake is spent in that pursuit or planning. Sounds about right. And you have seen us spar for fun, so in a way, this is what we do. We are trained, we have instincts, we have defenses. My reaction in part was due to him trying to restrain me and then not backing down when I hurt him involuntarily. How much time does Jeff spend in combat? 0%, but I train myself, and I am getting better. You are. I can speak for Jeff by saying he would never try to restrain you or fight with you physically. Not unless it was in a sexy way. Never say never. Stipulated. And it can be in a sexy way. Garrus and I were primed to fight. We fought. Do you want to fight with Jeff? No. I am relieved. You're telling me. Edie, I can't explain all of it. We're under stress. We're working hard. We love each other. Garrus is okay with it. More than okay with it, the fighting part at least. He's a Taurian accustomed to and invigorated by combat. You don't need to worry that you'll hurt Jeff. He's a human and invigorated by you. I do like seeing humans on their knees. Oh, hell no. I'll leave you guys to work this out. Coward! Time for me to miraculously not go punch someone else. I hope. Thank you, Commander. She stopped briefly to speak to Samantha, who was more nervous than usual. Take a breath, trainer. I'm not going to hit you. Oh, I'm so sorry, Commander. I didn't mean to. Morim put a hand on her shoulder. It's okay. I'm okay. Does that help? Garrus will be okay. Thank you, but I do not understand how you can go about your business. I kill people every day. I just beat him up. I am never going to fit in. You fit in fine. Come on, tell me about your brilliant deductions. Samantha opened her mouth and then closed it, saying, Well, I think perhaps you and Garrus are under a great deal of stress. I meant about any possible data you've been crunching. Getting me Jack has given me great expectations. Samantha blushed. Oh, I feel the need to swear here. I don't swear much. Not in front of you. Unlike Jack. Samantha, you are a member of my crew, and although I don't owe you explanations as a crew member, I will be happy to give them. You're also my friend. Really? Really. I don't even know where to start. Are you all right, Commander? I'm tired. You are correct. I am under a great deal of stress. I had a nightmare about Garrus being indoctrinated. Oh, and you hit him. And I hit him. And he wanted to know what my dream was, and I didn't want to tell him, and I hit him some more. So he... Oh. Are you going to hit him again? There are quite a few chemical treatments for nightmares available, some with no side effects on testing. I'm trying to prevent hitting him again. Tell me about the treatments. I need to ask Dr. Shakwas about them. I have a 1 knee limit. Do they work on biotics? Samantha was very helpful, and Morim was beginning to feel more than a little ashamed of not dealing with nightmares sooner. Everyone was helpful. Why hadn't she anticipated that? She still wasn't sorry for hitting him, but she would do something about not doing it again. Javik was disdainful and disinterested on the surface, but pleased she'd come to speak to him. Javik, Vega tells me you're kicking ass in Normandy Bloodbath. I'm glad to hear it. I'm sorry I wasn't there to see it. Your duties take you elsewhere. Besides, if I could break Shakarian's nose myself, I would not need to instruct underlings. This overling appreciates your efforts. I'll get my shit together at some point and we can get that time in the ring. I look forward to it, Commander. Do please keep up practicing. Liara was her next stop. Liara took a look at her, quietly asked Glyph to go into passive mode and walked over to her and gave her a hug. Morim stood there for a good long while. When she pulled back, she said, I think I broke my Turian. Liara pushed Morim's hair back. I'm assuming he deserved it? Did he? Yes and no. It could have been prevented. I was dreaming about him being indoctrinated, and I wouldn't tell him. They were terrible dreams. It hurt to think about them. Worse to talk about them. Even worse to have him think I saw him that way. I was using biotics in my sleep. He was trying to make them stop. I don't know how to make them stop. Morim, I can help. Not forever, not always, but I can certainly lessen the severity. He threatened me with coming to you to solve the problem. Well, I can understand not wanting to be threatened, but why didn't you? Right now, in the clear light of day, amid all this support, I don't know. They started a while back, but they didn't really impact me until Morden died. Too much grief, too much guilt, likely believing I deserved to face my fears, plus not in a habit of asking for help. I should have known better. Garrus was going to collude with you or Karen eventually, but he wanted to warn me first. I wanted to prevent this, what I have now, everyone knowing, me explaining to anybody. Now I'm telling everyone, and I'm going to deal with it head on. He deserves that. You deserve that. Your pain is not something we take lightly. And I appreciate that. How can you help? I don't want you to have to see it. They scare the hell out of me. It scares me more that my brain came up with it in the first place. No, I won't look at that. Not if you don't want me to. Dream therapy is an Asari specialty, but privacy is paramount. I still, really, even if you did see, I'd still do it. I just really fucking hate this. This is not a good use of your time. Every one of us owes our life to you. Yes, I helped bring you back, but I still owe you my life, many times over. Our lives depend on you, Moram. Let us help. I don't know why you will help until you bleed or die, but you won't accept it in return. I mean, I know, I was in your head. I don't need a refresher course on that. But it will not take your ability to command from you if you acknowledge wear and tear and damage. Garrus and I don't deserve being denied the right to help you. I can help you. If your leg were cut off, you'd let me bandage it and not apologize for getting your blood on me. I might. You don't know. Please, Moram, if you won't do it for yourself, do it for Garrus. Do it for me. Do it for Karen and Vega and Edie. I wouldn't have brought it up if I weren't willing. I will also ask Karen about some level of chemical aid. I'm addicted to a Turian, and I'm terrified of losing him, and it all hurts. No matter what happens, Morden's still dead. Okay, I promise that what I am about to do will not invade your privacy. It's more like a valve, and I let off pressure. I don't need to see what's inside unless you give me permission. It won't stop all nightmares, but it should stop them from making you lose sleep, or use your biotics, or kick the hell out of your husband. Will you let me? Say yes. Yes. Thank you. Her hands came to Moram's temples. This wasn't like the previous bonding. There was no reaching for specific information. She didn't even say, embrace eternity, because she wasn't as dramatic or formal as she once was. She was a friend. That's all she felt. Friendship, love, support, trust. A powerful, gentle light to push back darkness. She could think they'd be all the same thoughts. They wouldn't hurt as much. There was an inrush of confidence in the form her mind would take naturally, not like the courage of being drunk. Fully lit trust. When the aura pulled back, Moram kept her eyes closed and said, Man, I missed out, didn't I? You know it. Go tell Garrus you love him. He knows. Do it again. Later. Anytime later. All right. Don't be surprised when I wake you up in the middle of the night. Uh-huh. I'll just hold my breath. Thank you, Liara. From the bottom of my unworthy heart. You are welcome, my dearest friend. Moram walked with light-hearted and light-headed steps to pick up a meal for Garrus, and then made her way to the medbay. Garrus watched her as she entered, his eyes following her without a smile, but with that particular blend of hunger and a tension in his eyes that made Vega jealous of losing a knee. She set down his meal within reach of him, and then said, Dr. Chakwas, Samantha Traynor mentioned something about medication for sleep to suppress nightmares in biotics. Do you have any you could recommend or prescribe? Garrus held very still and listened. I believe so. It might take some feedback from you to titrate the correct dosage, but I can synthesize a version that should be compatible with biotic metabolism. Thank you. That would be a huge help and reduce occupancy. Excellent. It will help us all. I'll have that for you in a few hours. Thank you. Moram turned back to Garrus. She smiled and sat down on the edge of the bed, putting her hand over his. How are you? Thank you for bringing food, but I couldn't eat any more. I've been brought 7 meals in quick succession by curious people. Curious no more. I told them about my nightmares. You told them? Who them? Everyone knows by now. Knows what, exactly? That I have them? That I have them of you being indoctrinated? That I lost control of my biotics? That I hurt my husband? I've been assured that information will stay on this ship, but I doubt it. He closed his eyes and said, Venri, you do nothing by half measures. Liara is willing to help me with nightmares. It's an Asari thing. It's nice. I'm not sure I made the correct choice in life partner. I'm glad, and don't make me kill her. When are you getting out of here? I need to stay for a little while. I'll stay here tonight. No. Go to our cabin. We've provided enough of a show for now. Not that I didn't enjoy it. We could get Karen to close the shades. No. Not here. Take your well-being and your medication and get some sleep. I'll miss you. He smiled and took her hand, gently kissing her palm. No, you won't. All right. Let me know if you need anything. I know what I need. Nothing will keep me from her. I really like the sound of that. She leaned forward and kissed him, and his hand held the back of her neck. Dizziness and flutters. She pulled away when he allowed it and faced the rest of her day with hope. Liara's emotional measures didn't hamper her. She still had the numbers, the possibilities, the exacting necessity. It just didn't hurt as much, didn't weigh as much. She'd had her mind touched by the consort, and Liara had missed her calling. Only a century old. Liara as a matron. Morim wouldn't live to see it. She was determined to allow Liara to see it. She was also able to sort out her body's feedback with new clarity. Hunger, thirst, fatigue. She addressed them when they came up, feeling again rather silly for making such a big deal out of simple problems that she'd had all the tools to solve. She made it to their cabin. Karen had the sleep medication delivered. She'd promised minimal sedation and only a tendency to tone down conscious memory of dream signals, limiting the wave amplitude during REM sleep, which would also be measured biometrically when she downloaded a recommended program to her OmniTool. Karen recommended the medication at low dosage to begin, possibly raising or lowering according to feedback. All right. Sounded good. She took the medication and did notice that her mind was quieter, calmer, not chewing on any problem in particular. Weird. Definitely weird. Good weird. Almost reverie weird. Contentment of the same flavor, but not intensity. She wondered whether or not the medication and reverie would interact, then forgot to be worried about it, and slipped seamlessly into sleep with no dreams she could recall. She woke to his arms around her, and a soft but deep rumbling growl that traveled through her spine as she arched back against him. She felt waves of beautiful, perfect, loved wash over her. The only hard edges were on his body, pressed to hers. Pleasures seemed to echo off every thought in her mind, amplified and focused. When she tried to shift, to turn to him, he held her still, his growl moving deeper into negative range, then back. His hands came to hers, and he traced her splinted fingers, his growl affirmative as she held still. She arched her neck to invite him, and he moved his mouth, his tongue, his teeth, that delicious purr rumbling against her back and her skin. He was gentle and slow, long brush strokes and points from his mouth. His growl stopped only long enough to say, "Morim, Venri, I love you." Then he went back to his growl. Something was odd about his voice. She understood the words, but his pronunciation... He was speaking English. He'd turned off her translator and he was speaking English. She wanted to move her hands, but she didn't. She said, "Garrus, Venri, met Connor, Turian words for, you are my heart." His appreciative groan melted back into his growl as he turned her to her back, his hands tracing the lines of her face, drinking in her smile in the dim light. His knee was either better or he was willing to risk it, because with speed that caused more flutters to spread out through her body, he had her caged in, knees to either side of her hips, hands to either side of her neck. When she forgot and her arms came around him, and gave another negative-sounding growl and set her hands down at her sides, saying, "No." She smiled and asked, "Tas?" which meant, "Please." And he said, "No. Morim, protect, thanks." Which she assumed meant fingers. He'd done some homework. She didn't know the word for knee in Turian. She couldn't move her hands to ask, and she doubted that he'd admit it hurt him if there was a bullet through it anyway. she said. Venri sunt canlim. My bondmate's needs are my own. A formal acquiescence of will, something considered for the ceremony and discarded by Solana in the planning. Probably too formal, but it was the best she could do. It was possible she was saying it wrong, but he heard her as she had intended. A growl turning into a caged kiss. His sternum blade just far enough to touch as she breathed. His arms against her neck, and his hips and thighs hovering over and around her, with him suspended in space. An absolute. His hands moved again, but she remembered, and settled back, pulling the sheets between her fingers to give her something to hold on to remember. He kept up his growl and said, "Good." No kidding, good, she thought, but couldn't say it. Instead, she growled along with him, trying to imitate the happy Taurian sound. It was softer, higher, and missing the beautiful overlapping tones his voice produced. He heard it, and understood, and laughed in a way that tightened her throat, and squeezed her closer to Mindless. He kissed her until she was panting, and he slowly lowered himself to her until she was arching her hips to his, her breasts brushing against his chest, nipples hard in reverie, causing the ache to melt into anything he wanted, to hold any shape for him. And then it hit her, what he was saying, what he was doing. Speaking her language, protecting her fingers, growling his pleased growl. She'd made him happy. She was human, so he'd speak English. She didn't have to touch him. Just being there made him happy. She still remembered something more, something before her wits fled. She moved her mouth from his toward his throat, craning her neck until he turned his throat to her, growling again, his growl with a sharp edge to it. The hair at the back of her neck and upper arms rose up at that sound. She tasted his blood and bit her own lip, moved her head back to look at him, to say, "Sundkan, Venri." She meant, "This is what you need," but didn't think it meant that, just the words together. She didn't know how to say "for you," and sense was fading, but he couldn't have mistaken the words, or the gesture. His eyes slipped from tender, protective, to hungry and feral, then slipped into hooded intent. He accepted her offering with a long kiss, the tip of his tongue gliding over her lips, his absolute form held upright, still, without a tremble. He pulled his head back from her, took one hand, still held up without moving, and used his hand to drag along the scent line, painting her deliberately along collarbones and cheekbones. He said, "Mine." Pass. He closed his eyes for a long moment, breathed in a long inhale, pulled back from her, resettling himself to support himself on his knees, bending forward to look at her breasts, teasing nipples between his fingers, caging them in his hands, drawing lines and curves on her skin as she whimpered and wound the sheet tighter around fingers to keep them from pressing his head closer. She arched up against him instead, nearly drawing blood on a sharp gasp and search. His hands moved to her waist, his tongue on her navel. "Shh, Venri. Shh." She let him know how she felt about shh by uttering He laughed against her skin and dragged his fluttering mandibles lower until they spread against her inner thighs, saying again, Mine. And waiting until she said, Toss, in a short burst between gasps. He was slow and deliberate, humming and growling against her, licking at her clit and sliding a finger into her. Then changing, driving his tongue into her and stroking her with fingertips and talon edges while he held her hips still with one hand. He kept her off balance and unable to build to an orgasm, falling off cliffs of sensation to drown in a new one and trying to catch her breath. Sweat broke out on her skin and her thighs began to tremble and a keening built in her throat. He switched one last time until he drove his finger inside to curl in and press with his tongue, rough and insistent, not stopping until her breath came in uncontrolled pants, and then the rhythmic moans that went with the clenching spasms around his finger against his mouth as he hummed approval. He rose up on his knees, bent over her, guiding his cock inside with a heavy, wrenched groan. He growled again and told her, Mine. You say, Venri. Mine. She was lost in sensation and didn't understand, saying, Toss, Garrus. He pressed deeper inside. Venri. Mine. You say, Mine. She didn't know the word in Turian. She wrapped her legs around his waist to pull him closer and said, Mine. He growled in approval. You say, Garrus. Mine. Garrus. You are mine. He growled, pulled from her and drove in again, holding inside, reaching, saying, Please. She pulled him forward with her legs, and he came down on his elbows, kissing her lips, offering her his throat. She nipped and looked at him until he pulled from her, kissed her again with a deep keen she recognized as a sign of his surrender. Trembles loose in his limbs and his voice. He licked at her bitten lip, showing her what she did to him, how much he wanted her, how much he loved her. He rolled to the side to keep from collapsing on her, his hand in her hair, his other hand pulling her more tightly against him, with him inside her. Another groan from him, a gasp from her. He whispered her name, and she whispered his, until they drifted away. Joy.